Well, YCS Memphis has just concluded the top cut thing or whatever that's been posted, etc. And all my sources, as usual, come from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Konami blog. And I guess I'm just gonna do what I usually do after each YCS, and it's go over the top 32 breakdown. And well, considering how we've had this format for a solid 2 months, I think this is like the 6th major event of the format. There really isn't anything new I can really say. It's we've seen these decks before. They're just doing their thing, and not really much surprises here, but I guess I should probably talk a little bit about what we've seen. So for the majority cut, as usual, is Pendulum Magician. Without a doubt, the strongest deck, the most powerful deck, the deck that does the most within a turn, within any given scenario of combo cards, etc., etc. That's, no surprises there. Again, Konami have decided to no longer categorize Pendulum as Pendulum, Magician or Pendulum FTK. And the Pendulum FTK, because of this representation, I believe, is a even bigger problem than it's, kind of being made out to be. Honestly, I felt like for a while, there was a brief period where I thought, hey, maybe we over kind of exaggerated how problematic the FTK is. It's really not. It's definitely not, underplayed. If anything, it's a bigger problem than we thought. Now, I know that the majority of these Magician decks won't be playing the FTK, but it's something that we need to talk about because they are still a very strong contender. When I am talking to my contacts who are in the event and playing in the event, people who have made it far, people who have only made day one, all kinds of different records and different brackets they would have been categorized into throughout the day, have all told me that they have, at some point, either FTK'd their opponent or have been FTK'd by their opponent. So it's really quite shocking, to be honest. And it's something that needs to be addressed immediately, and I have done a ban list video on this before. So first and foremost, regardless of how powerful Magician is, I think it's silly that an FTK is still in the game. I think it's ridiculous that an FTK is being allowed to run around for this length of time, and I think it's ridiculous that an FTK is not really seen as a big enough a problem for Konami to deal with immediately, which they really should. They really should be addressing this because, as far as I can remember, I don't think FTKs have been allowed to live for very prolonged periods of times in the history of this game, other than, I don't know, maybe the Mass Driver thing. But yeah, it's crazy because you can play just a Pendulum Magician deck and you have the option to FTK if you play, maybe like 2 or 3 extra cards. There is also the option to side into it if you feel like you're able to actually pull off the FTK, perhaps in like game 3 if you won the dice roll and you get to go first for game 3 or something. Then that's also an option as well. The versatility of the FTK is just, it's ridiculous, right? So I think that that's something that needs to be addressed immediately. Now for the rest of the Magician hits, I think I've talked about this before, but I think the deck obviously needs toned down. My personal suggestion for the best way to tone the deck down would be to ban Astrograph Sorcerer, because I think Magician would still be very strong and it'd still be a very good contender, but Astrograph probably needs hit to address this. Without a doubt, Magician is still reigning strong. I think this is maybe one of their stronger events this format, because generally they do tend to hover around 10 or so, 10 or 11 tops, but we've got 12, and it is what it is, right? A little bit of variance here and there. It's averaging at about 13 tops per event. I've done a video doing a tier list for this format, so you'll be able to check that as well. At the end of the video, a thumbnail will pop up, and in the description as well, I'll leave a link to the tier list for this format that I comprised of. And yeah, there's about 13 tops on average for Magician, so 12 is really not that bad. Now the next deck is True Draco, and it seems like True Draco has been getting stronger and stronger with each event. Probably because of the fact that more and more people are shifting towards Magician and realizing that it is the best deck and it is the deck that you should probably be playing if you want to give yourself a very strong chance of going as far as possible in a major event. And True Draco naturally is the best counter to that because they have so many in-engine ways of shutting down Magician, of outing Magician boards, of dealing with the Magician first turns. And moreover, if you do win the dice roll, you're able to set up with many different floodgates, as we've probably heard or seen in my round 1 feature match that I did. There is the ability to just crack down on Magician with the anti-spells, with Skill Drain, with Monarch's Erupt, all kinds of different ways to shut down your opponent, shutting down the hand traps with the Mano Wato Ameno. Ameno, Iwato, Ameno. So, that's the thing. Honestly, I think True Draco as a deck is sort of okay, but those floodgates absolutely need to be addressed. I think Anti-Spell is the most unfair card ever for your Pendulum player. It's one of the fairer floodgates if it didn't include scales. That's what I'll say about that. Not to mention as well that they have an extremely good interaction with Skill Drain, with Monarch's Erupt. They have very good synergy with Card of Demise. They're able to play all the best power spells in the game, like Demise, Desires, the Duality as well, and finally Card of Demise. Did I already mention that? Okay, yeah, I probably mentioned that already. And then Trickstar. Trickstar is a very, very strong deck that isn't Magician or True Draco. It's surprising, and it seems to kind of just go a little bit slightly unrecognized, but Trickstar is a very powerful deck that isn't one of the two heavyweights. Every single event it has topped. It has topped every single major premier event this format. And I think this is actually one of its stronger events. It's averaging at about 3 tops per event, and here we've got 4. So, yeah, I guess with the more striking popularity of Magician and the strength of Magician, and naturally the meta can shift towards anti-meta decks, and Trickstar is a very, very good engine for running anti-meta cards, because they just have very few 1-2 card interactions that allow them to get their engine going, and then can dedicate the 2 or 3 other thirds of their deck towards stun cards, towards more power cards, towards more ways of hand traps and stuff. So Trickstar are very, very strong at being able to contend as an anti-meta deck. I personally would have expected Invoked variants, like Mech Knight Invoked or whatever, etc., to overtake Trickstar as the more popular and the more stronger anti-meta contender, but Trickstar is really has outshined Invoked. It completely has taken over all of and basically every Invoked kind of contention for third place, and there's really no way for Invoked to catch up in terms of number of tops remaining. So yeah, Trickstar proving again to be very strong. I really don't think there's anything special or unique they could be teching in and playing at this point in time. I really just don't see what could be so special. I feel like Trickstar is a very solved deck. It's very linear, and it has a simple win condition. And not saying that's a bad thing or anything, but I don't know where else you can innovate with the deck. It just is what it is, Play some Ashes, Desires, and Eater Millions, Scapegoats, a couple of Solemns, and you're pretty much good to go with that deck. So yeah, Trickstar is coming out in 4 spots. Now for the rest of them, I guess you could basically call them the quote-unquote rogue decks or whatever. It's a very weird format, because you have 2 heavyweight decks, and then you have these other decks, which are all good decks, but they are just really not enough to kind of really contend massively with the 2 aforementioned decks. So we've got a couple of things here, like Mech Knight Invoke taking 1 spot. That deck has been fairly popular, and I think it actually has just been the most popular Invoked variant of the deck. And I maybe think that that's a little bit surprising. I expected people to maybe shift away from Mech Knight. It's very easy to play against if you know that you're paired against a Mech Knight Invoke player. So maybe some disadvantages there. Maybe that's why it's not doing as well as it could potentially be. So only 1 spot there, Gem Knight. It's crazy that we are in a format where an FTK is valid in probably the best meta deck, and yet we have 2 FTKs in the format. Not 1, but 2. Yes, it's a buy one get one fucking free shebang deal right now with Yu-Gi-Oh. If you like FTKs, who would have thought that you'd be given 2 options to FTK? You have Gem Knights and you have Magician. Not really anything to say about this. This is me going on the assumption it's an FTK. Because I can't really see pure Gem Knights winning other than, running the FTK. So feel free to come back to this video and laugh at me once the deck profile of whoever is playing Gem Knights goes up, and you can say, haha, see, it was actually pure Gem Knights. He's a very good player, and Gem Knights are the best deck. Fuck you, Farfa. So you can come back and say that if I'm wrong and it actually isn't the FTK version, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that deck can FTK just with its engine cards. It's not like it has to play particularly, stupid or dumb cards and garnets and stuff. It probably does actually literally play garnet. But anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Lightsworn. It was categorized as Zombie Plant, and I would assume it's probably just referring to Lightsworn. But then again, is that really a Lightsworn deck? Who cares? I don't know. Semantics aside, the 60 card thing got a top cut spot. So again, that deck still proving to be very capable of making it into top cut, but unfortunately not consistent enough to get really much further. Dinos have been surprisingly really good for a 60 card deck, and arguably the stronger of the 60 card variants. And yeah, double evolution pill OTK your board has indeed taken 2 spots for this event. And finally, to round it off, 2 Metalfoes decks, which I would assume are Draco variants, but I guess we'll wait and see until the actual deck profiles come out on YouTube. Yeah, that deck's it's okay. It's gotten a few tops over the course of this format, and it's a decent shout. It's definitely not the strongest or best deck, but it does have a lot of really stupid interactions. So that deck's interesting, and yeah, that's really all I have to say for this event. Honestly, if you took anything away from this video, it's basically everything I've ever said ever with every YCS for this format. Nothing really particularly special. It's just much of the same, I think I said this in the last video as well. It's just much of the same. Well, here we go again. Yeah, YCS Memphis top 32 breakdown, much of the same. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you make sure that you subscribe and follow the channel and stuff, and hit the notification bell for more videos directly into your inbox and stuff, and you guys can keep up to date with the latest shit posting and horrible opinions. So thanks everyone, and take care.